My name is Shoaib. I'm in digital marketing. I'm in sales, tech sales. I was born in India, in Assam. Ever since I was young, my parents decided to move out of India, so I grew up in the Middle East for my university. I went to school in Buffalo, finished my university there, and then moved to New York City for work and been here since. When I was younger, I got it from my uncle, right? So his name is 𝗙𝗿𝗲𝗄𝗧. He had what I thought when I was younger was an incredible collection of watches. In fact, the first watch that I saw and fell in love with was the GMT Master 2 with the Pepsi bezel, the vintage one, right? So that's the one that I first saw and I absolutely fell in love with it. It was just like the blue, the red, it just like made sense. That's where it actually gets into our first watch, which is, I think, the most meaningful watch to me. This was a gift from my parents. The irony, we were in Switzerland. We were there for a family trip, and they decided to go out, buy this watch, and surprise me. And I still remember they came in with like a little bag that said Swatch on it. I had no idea. I thought like maybe it's a gift for somebody. Like I wasn't expecting it at all. And then they gave it to me saying like, hey, we know you like watches. Here's something cool. And when I got it for the first time, it was just like, I mean, look, it's a quartz movement, right? It has a chronograph on it. It has this transparent thing around like the aluminum. It just looked amazing. When I held it for the first time, and the weight of this, by the way, is like, it's light, right? It's like feather weight. When I picked it up, it was just a beautiful moment. And the fact that my parents bought it, it was just like, just everything coming together. It made me believe that I can now start collecting watches. It was like almost this like thing that came in me where like, oh, now I can actually, get cool watches. It was just kind of cool. After this one, the next one that came to my collection is this one, another Swatch. This is the one that I got when I was in college. In fact, I was flying to India in Swiss Air, and I had a connecting flight in Zurich. And I step out of the plane and I see the Swatch store, and I fell in love with this one because it had the red strap on it, just looked beautiful. It's a Swatch irony, right? It's a stainless steel irony. And just a moment of being in Switzerland, getting off the plane and just buying it. I think this is, I would say, my first proper watch that I bought myself. Chronograph, it had a beautiful, look at that face, right? It's just absolutely beautiful. I thought it was really well made, and another really special piece that I had. So that's how kind of my love for watches evolved. Again, it was by looking at my uncle's collection, and then eventually when I started being able to buy watches is where, again, for a long time it was just more the fashion brands, Swatches, and then eventually evolved into more of the luxury class, right? So that's how it I really got into the details of watches when was actually from the first mistake I made in terms of buying watches, right? So I bought this watch when I started working, and I found out later on that it was a fake. When I was wearing it, somebody actually called me out and said like, hey, that's a fake, right? It was embarrassing for me, getting called out for a fake watch, which I didn't know was a fake. And then, I got rid of the watch. I got the money back. That was a good, the good news coming out of it. But that was the moment, I think, where I was like, you know what, I need to take a step back, right? I can't just go and just buy watches just to buy it. I want to get to know, what these are about, what are the mechanics behind it, why are they so expensive, right? It's a stainless steel watch, but why is it so expensive? That's when I started getting into a little bit more of what the mechanics are, what are the different types of watches, what to look out for quality. Is it only always when it's expensive, or can it be, a little bit more affordable and still be a quality watch, right? And that's where I think now that I look back at it and I look at my collection, it kind of reflects in that, where most of the watches that I have might not be the most expensive watch on the planet, but it is quality, and it has a story behind it, right? Which is personal to me. The Rolex GMT Master 2. This is the one that I think, this was my first luxury watch that I bought with my own money. And after that whole incident of the fake watch, I took a step back. It's a rare find, right? The GMT, the Batman, walking into a store in New York City, and I used to do that a lot. So I used to work in Manhattan, and on the way, the Rolex store was there. So I always used to go in just to see what they have, right? So I walked in there and I asked them about the Batman. They never had it. Obviously, they had the list, right, which I got on. I was called to Boston for a meeting, and the meeting went great. From what I heard, the deal closed after that, which the sales guys took care of. This is in Boston Mall. On the way down from their offices, again, walking out, I see this Rolex AD. Enter the store, I look down at the display they have there, and this watch was there, right? And I was like, guys, is this the Batman, right? And they're like, yes, this is the Batman. You're super lucky. There's only 2 that came in today morning. Somebody's on the way to get one. This one's available. I was like, all right, I mean, I have to pull the trigger at this point, right? And this is something that I've been looking for the longest time. The sales guys at that point had a really funny take on it. Right? They were like, hey, this guy came in, did the presentation, closed the deal, came downstairs, picked up a Rolex, and went home, right? That was the whole story that was at work, which I thought was, just interesting. But I think just the story of how I got it is what makes it special. So the watch that I thought was unique and not a lot of people are going to have it has to be the Emerald REC from Aventi. I started following Aventi when they initially came out during the pandemic. I think I saw Kevin O'Leary talk about it in one of his interviews where he was wearing his like red Aventi A10, I believe. So I saw it and I was like, oh, that looks cool. Let me just look into it. Let me research this company. So I gave them a call. I set up an appointment. They gave me a call back. We started talking, and it was just cool to get to know them as a brand, as people who are doing this, right? I bought their the 𝗴𝗿𝗲𝗆, the Producer Michael edition, which is the full sapphire body. So this was the first one that I got. And then once the REC Emerald came out, this is the one that, from a lab testing perspective, this is a Colombian emerald, right? Like lab made. Just the number of watches which are available, I believe it's like less than 100. And just the material and everything, it has a tourbillon movement. Whenever I wear it, whenever I'm out and about, everybody's just like, what is this piece, right? It just looks amazing. But it's rare, it's like, it's well made, and the material is just, it's amazing. Panerai. So this is another one that I bought after the Rolex, and this was one of those watches that when I got the Rolex, I started wearing it, and I realized very quickly that I won't be able to wear that watch on a daily basis, because if you know the GMT Master 2, like these are scratch magnets, right? These are like, it gets scratched, like all that polished bezel is like scratched all over, right? Tells a story, right? So I'm never going to scuff them off because each scratch has a story behind it. But I quickly realized that, I need something that is rough and tough and I can just use it on a daily basis. And that's where I picked up the Panerai. The 2 things that I was looking for in a watch was, something that shows the movement on the back, right, which has a transparent case back, and something that has numbers on it. When you look at the Panerai collection, those 2 things coming together is rare. It's a tank on your hand, right? It's amazing. And then the Swatch collab with Omega, right? I mean, this is another story behind it. Ever since I was young, I was always into astronomy. And my father, in fact, when Neil Armstrong, went to the moon, he was a kid in India, right? And he actually wrote a letter to NASA, to Neil Armstrong, about how he loves the whole thing. And he actually got a reply back. He still has that letter from NASA and Neil Armstrong, just talking to him and saying, thank you for your support, etc., all of that, right? And when I saw this collab of Swatch and Omega coming together, I thought it was so cool, right? Again, not for the material or anything, it's just for the story behind it. So I picked up a couple. In fact, I have 3 right now that you can see here, which is, I have the Saturn, the Earth, and this, I believe, is the Uranus. So these are the 3 that I have right now. I did get one more, which is the Moon version of this watch, which I gave to my dad, because I knew he was going to love it, right? I did change the straps as well, as you can tell. This is more of like that business casual look, another kind of daily casual look with the camel strap here. And then for my wife, I got like the white strap on the Uranus, which I thought was cool. So again, another watch that I think has a cool story behind it, and just personally too, it was clicked, right? So another one that I absolutely love. Obviously, the gift from my wife for our wedding, right? The Breitling 𝗙𝗵𝗆𝗃. I never thought I was going to buy a Breitling, right? It was one of those things where we were together in a mall in Jersey when, again, we decided to walk into this store, like a watch store. My main requirement that I told them is, hey, if I'm going to go for a Breitling, I want to go for a Breitling that looks like a Breitling and is a Breitling. Even if somebody looks at it from far away, they should know this is a Breitling, right? And that's where, he showed me this piece, and it's, the 𝗙𝗵𝗆𝗃. When I looked at it, I was like, all right, this is signature Breitling. There's nothing else that compares to it. So we decided to get it. It was a gift for the wedding. This is very special to me just because of that. And obviously, my wife is not big into watches, but the fact that after that she kind of made an effort to get to know watches, so which I think was a cool, just a cool story and something that makes it special as well. If something has a story behind it, it has a reason to exist, and the reason why it is the way it is, that always intrigues me. Like, I want to know how this became the way it became. Besides the watch collection, the only other thing that I have are a collection of pens. Here's my pen collection. There's a couple of 𝗙𝗿𝗄𝗃𝗃s in there. There's a couple of Mont Blancs. This pen, again, it's a really special pen. It's Mont Blanc who made it for Muhammad Ali. This represents the strap in his hands, like as he's boxing, like the strap there. Stings like a bee. This is the belt that says like Ali on there. And then you have the score, like the score of his first win as a boxer, right? The world championship. The mechanics of that pen, right? The ability to take in that ink, dispersing that ink just at the right amount as you write. Some of the materials that some of these pens are built with as well are rare, and it's just hard to work with. The thing that I love about this pen is the story, right? So another 𝗙𝗿𝗄𝗃, and this is 1000, so it's number 1000 out of 1800. You have the guardian angel here with the sword, and the whole concept of somebody having your back and making sure that everything goes well. You have the wings, the sun right here. The other thing is, I do wear a turquoise ring, right? It's a sunnah as part of Muslim, you wear that. When I looked at this pen, again, they have some of this turquoise kind of like accents on there, which I love. And the pens, they almost adapt to you. And the way they adapt to you and your writing style as you write with them more, I think is super interesting. It's a beautiful writing experience. In fact, after buying some of these pens is where I started like journaling and writing a lot more. When you write down things, you remember it more, right? So when I'm talking to my clients, a lot of times I used to type things down. You never go through all of your type notes, right? It just never happens. The cognitive skills just get that much more sharper once you start writing it down, right? Which I thought was really cool. Every watch that I have in my collection has some sort of story behind it, right? But let me select some of them. So this is a Breitling Aviator 8, a limited edition, only 100 pieces of these in the world, made for the Middle East market very specifically. And the reason why this was special to me and something that I wanted to get hold of, like I grew up in the Middle East, right? So I grew up in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. So this is one that, I absolutely love. The other one here is the Christopher Ward bel canto, right? So this has an hour repeater in it where every hour it chimes. And if you look at like all other chime watches, again, it's a different tax bracket, right? So that's where I think, where I am today, I think this was another very special watch that I thought, oh, there you go, you can actually hear the chime, that I thought was really cool and something that I'm really proud of. I can't wear gold. So as a Muslim, we're not allowed to wear gold, right? So, but for my wife's watches, right? And that's where like, I think the Rolex that I have here, so let me just show this to you, right? So this is the gift that I got her as a push gift for our son, right? And this is a two-tone, gold stainless steel, right? So for her, I would definitely buy the gold watches, anything that has value from a material perspective. For my own collection, I typically look at, again, just the mechanics behind it. It's more of like what the watch is. So that's where like, when Aventi came up with some of the sapphire watches, I was super excited about it just from a material perspective. Platinum is the other one that I would love to own at some point. I don't have any platinum watches at this point, but that's a goal sometime in the future, right? So that's how I look at like, in terms of materials. But yeah, my wife's going to be happy to hear that. But, she's the one who's going to get all the gold. So this is another really interesting watch. It's called the Sonata. I have no idea what this watch is. It's a gold watch. It's not real gold, by the way. It's like, probably not real gold. So again, it's a cool watch, right? Like if you look at it, like, hey, it's a nice looking watch. So when I was getting married, everybody that I know, all my family, my friends, people who are like special to me, who take an effort to know me, they know I love watches, right? This I thought was really cool because it was something that was gifted to me as part of my wedding. And there was no other watches that made the gift list, right? So this was the only one that came. It didn't have a name on it, right? So I don't know who gave it to me, but I do know like whoever gave it to me made an effort to actually like go buy a watch and think like, hey, it's a cool watch, he might like it, right? But yeah, I thought this was just a cool story behind what this watch is, right? So this was, again, a really special watch. This one, all of us at one point in our lives have seen those cool kids in school who used to have a calculator as part of their watch, right? And Look, I've been growing up, my parents did everything that they could possibly do to give me a really good life. I was never one of those kids who would like demand things. Like I don't like I never did that where, I was like, hey, I want a calculator watch, right? It never happened. When I think Casio released this about like 3 to 4 years back, and I saw this online, and again, it had the calculator, it had the screen and everything. So this is almost like a a point of nostalgia of like when you look back in your middle school, high school, maybe, it reminds me of your childhood and, the simpler days, which I thought was, another cool one to have in your collection, right? There's also like the Casio Oak, like you gotta have one of these, right? Like, it's just such a well-made watch, right? I think it's a really cool piece to have. I wouldn't modify this. So a lot of people modify this to look like an AP, right? Like I've seen people do that. I wouldn't do that. I think just as it stands today, it's quite a beautiful piece to have as well, right? Seiko V, right? $150 watch. But as a dress watch, it's just such an amazing piece, right? It's really simple, straightforward with the Arabic dial, which I love as well. It doesn't always have to be expensive, right? You can find something that is relatively cheap. It has great movement. It has everything that you want in a watch. And this is an example of one of those watches, which is just special to me just because of that fact, right? The selection process of how I pick up a watch has evolved over time. So if you look at some of my earlier collections and what I used to look at, it was more like, hey, this is a cool watch. It just looks cool. I wasn't going a lot into the mechanics behind it, or like if it's, if you look at the bigger collection. So there's a lot of like similar watches that you'll see there, right? Like even if you look at these two as an example, this is, a 𝗙𝗏𝗄𝗏 fossil watch. And this is a gift, by the way, from my sister, that has like a mechanical movement in it. It's really cool, right? And then if you look at this one, which I think is like it's like a Kenneth Cole watch or something. And again, this is another gift that I got. Again, skeletonized movement, automatic, right? So again, very similar. As it evolved to my new collection is, the more, what I'm wearing day to day now. Out of those watches, I think it is a factor of when I'm looking at a watch, how does it fit into my overall collection? Do I have something that is very similar? I think right now I'm at that stage where I've done the Rolex. I'm going to get into Audemars Piguet right now. And then after that is where I see Patek happening, right? So I think that's how I'm looking at it. I think the next one's most likely going to be an Audemars Piguet, and then Patek in the future. The other piece that also has become more of a kind of thought process is this a good investment? 5-6 years down the line, what is this company doing? What are they, are they thinking innovation? Are they just putting out watches just to put out watches? Those are some of the considerations that come into play. Like say, for example, this Rolex, right? So, my goal is like, down the line, whenever my son's ready, I mean, he's 2 at this point, right? There's going to be like 22 years from now. When I give him this watch, like it's going to be like, hey, this is something that's a pass down. It's going to have value, right? So the hold of value is important to me, and whether it be real estate, whether it be even in the crypto. I know with crypto, it's not the most stable investment, but I think there's a use case and a future to it. Diversification is the name of the game, right? So you got to have investments in different sectors. So if one goes up, the other one goes down, it's going to still keep you afloat. Ultimately, it's a hold of value, it's growth, and passing it down to the next generation, right? So when he's ready. When he has an appreciation for all of these things, that's the pass along, right? If you're looking for your first watch, it really depends on where you are in your career, in your life, like where are you? I always tell people this, never push yourself to a point where you're buying anything that's going to put your livelihood or like your lifestyle at risk, right? So when you're first starting off, I would always say like, go for, like the Swatch is a great brand to go with, right? There's a lot of story behind it. And the other thing is like learn watches, right? I made that mistake of buying that fake watch and took a step back, and that's where I kind of like, all right, I need to learn watches a little bit more. And especially in today's world, like with YouTube, with all the videos out there, there's a lot of resources out there that's gonna teach you like, what are watches, what does it make it special? Is it the material that's used? Is it the internal workings? Start with something that you like, right? It's something, don't worry about what others think about it, right? Don't worry about like, hey, I wanna get a Rolex only, I'm gonna wait for a Rolex just because people are gonna think it's cool. That's not it. Let it happen organically, right? Like when I got that Swatch, I never thought in my entire life that I was ever gonna buy a Rolex, I'm ever gonna buy a Panerai, none of that, right? Like when I got that watch, I was enjoying the moment of buying, like getting that watch and enjoying it. And it kind of organically happened where as I progressed in my career, as I moved forward with it, you know, I was able to buy some of these other watches. I learned more about watches, I kind of developed this passion of horology, right? And it's addicting. Like I can tell you right now, there's a lot of times where I'm on my phone, I'm on my computer, I'm looking at videos, I'm looking at watches, looking at all these people talking about watch, and my wife tells me all the time, like, dude, you are absolutely addicted to this thing. And I am. It's terrible, right? Like it's one of those things that, you know, I keep telling myself I'm not gonna buy a watch. In fact, last year I was like, I'm not gonna buy a watch. I ended up buying 3, right? It was like one of those things. Go into the watch store, right? Like look at online, see something that really speaks to you. Go with that watch, and eventually, like, you know, organically, you're gonna get to know other watches, you're gonna get to know the movements, and it's gonna evolve, right? So I would say it's one of those things that don't overthink it, is gonna be my, you know, my advice there.